In the last episode of PopCon, slime showed us it was something we could all get behind. But is there slime in outer space? Will droids become canon? Does Star Wars and the Space Force share an enemy in the Empire? What about Mando? And what does fate have for our friend at Lucasfilm? Confused? You won't be after this episode of PopCon.
Get away from her, you bitch.
And now, the host of PopCon, Victor.
Thank you, everybody, and thanks for joining us back here at PopCon. A salute to all pop culture, but mostly the 80s. This topic spans decades. Do you remember the time before Star Wars? Me neither. It just doesn't seem like there's ever been a time like that. Since its premiere in the 70s, it's like the characters and the stories have always been with us. More than being old friends, the exploits of Han, Luke, Leia, Chewbacca, and the droids all seem to be part of a collective past. I wouldn't be surprised if future history books or history classes taught their adventures just like they teach the fall of the Berlin Wall or the JFK assassination. One could argue that the adventures of Star Wars are part of the American adventure as much as the moon landing, the technological revolution, or gay marriage. We're going to tackle this topic head on with a guest from Lucasfilm, actually a former employer who's going to tell us a little bit about what it was like. Did you ever wonder, was it like Google? Was it like a college fraternity? Or maybe it was as solemn and serious as the Jedi Temple? Well, wonder no more, as our guest will fill us in a little bit on what it was like to be in such a special order. Please welcome our guest, David Iskra. David, welcome to PopCon. Thanks for joining me.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So I want you to know before we start that I am not here to get any secrets, anything you can't talk about, even if you're not allowed. I'm not going to try and beat it out of you. So I just want this to be casual and fun. And so I hope you're looking forward to it.
Yeah, I can't wait.
All right, let's get started. So just with some simple questions. What's going to happen to Grogu? Are we going to get rid of the sequel series? And is C-3PO seeing anybody?
All right, there's a lawyer outside ready to get me. Yeah, and just so I'll start this off. I don't work for Lucasfilm anymore. I am still friends with the legal department and PR, and I'm just going to tell you stories about my experience working there.
That's great. Thanks for getting that out of the way. Truly understand that. I threw that out because I know that a lot of people, when they're like, what is someone going to ask me? And I'm sure during your time at Lucasfilm, you had those opportunities to say, and you probably met a lot of people who asked the question. You're like, ugh. So definitely not going to do that. Actually, what I'm more interested in is how it felt to be part of and your part in a pop culture iconic a company, zeitgeist. Just going to ask, it seems like it's hard to get a job at Lucasfilm. I think most people would think so. Did you sleep with someone or just kill someone?
Both. No. It's funny because I have a friend who calls it like the castle walls. Like you have to get over this crazy castle wall. And I'll tell you my story in a minute, how I got in there. I have a lot of people come to me and ask, oh, my kid wants to get into film or he wants to get into animation. How do you do that? And there is no straight line. My story probably has more zigzags than most, but even my friends that I've worked with, some of them go to these great art schools. They go to USC, they go to CalArts, and they get in there. They work at Pixar, Disney, or Lucasfilm. Other people got right out of high school and lucked out. I think it was probably less competitive, way back. You talk to some of these special effects guys that George hired himself, and they were bumming around LA and found a job and nobody knew what this was going to be. It's obviously harder now. You asked me a couple questions there, so I'm going to kind of bounce around. Part of it, I almost felt like it's being a professional fan, because as much as I'm a fanboy and I'm passionate about Star Wars, you can't geek out, on a location. You can't geek out when you see somebody in the hallway. And I think that's what separates you from some of the more amateurs or the people that might not make the cut. Is knowing when to turn it off. They want people that are passionate, but they don't want someone who's going to freak out when somebody walks down the hallway and ruin their day.
Passionate but professional.
Yes. and knowing when to keep a secret. I mean, I know stuff that I'll probably never be able to tell people, and things that didn't get made, things that didn't happen, things that might have happened. And there's people that spill the beans and say stuff and lose their jobs and don't work in the industry again, or make people mad. So I would like to keep working. So I do keep my secrets. How I got here was, I still kind of sit back sometimes and think, how did I get here? What am I doing here? How am I in this room with these people? I grew up in a suburban town outside of Philadelphia, huge Star Wars fan, huge Disney fan. I wanted to be an illustrator. I wanted to do concept art for Star Wars and things like that. And, I just wasn't that good. So I didn't get that job. I worked at Sesame Place, which is a theme park outside of Philadelphia. And I did tech work there, costuming, helping with Big Bird and character appearances and things like that. So that I got my start in high school working there, where I started to learn how to be professional around, IP, which we didn't call it IP back then. It was just, there's Big Bird and Elmo. But learning how to work around them and how to deal with guests and how to present that brand and maintain that brand and take care of that brand as a passionate fan, but also as a professional. And then from there, I graduated college. I toured with Sesame Street Live. Again, the next step, learning how to go work in a venue professionally and take these things around the country. And then I moved to Florida, moved to Orlando. I interviewed at Disney and became a stage tech, working on the Tarzan show. This was back in like 99, 2000. Festival of the Lion King, which is still going, which I'm always happy to see. And so I was there for a little while. Around 2001, I moved out to LA. I got some jobs doing TV and film as a production assistant. And, none of these jobs were glamorous. They were fun and they were exciting, but they weren't high paying. They weren't, I was usually the guy getting coffee for somebody famous. And, I started to make more connections and meet more people. So I'm back in Orlando. I'm a production assistant, and I get asked if I want to work on Star Wars weekends. And, as a production assistant, you don't get to choose where you go. You get thrown project to project. And at Disney World, I was doing live events. So it was everything from Super Soap Weekend, ESPN Weekend to, small events and press events. And I got asked to work on Star Wars weekends, which to me, I thought I made it. That's it. This is the coolest thing ever. Like, I've peaked, right? Never thinking this was going to lead anywhere. Yeah. I mean, I was just happy to see a stormtrooper walking around, or, I couldn't believe that when I was taking notes in a production meeting that we were discussing stormtroopers or the Darth Vader.
You were getting your geek out early. You were getting your geek out now.
Yeah, I was freaking out. And, I was also a Disney geek. So I had always wanted to work at Disney World. Like I think Walt and George are on par with each other. These two innovative, creative people that literally built worlds. They've literally both built their own worlds, on screen and off screen in real life. So that to me was a big deal, like to work for those two of my heroes. So I did that for a while, and I worked on multiple Star Wars weekends. I met Rick McCallum, who was the producer of the prequels. I wound up talking to him and keeping in touch with him after Star Wars weekends was over. Made some other friends at Lucasfilm. One day the phone rang and they said they had an events job open. I mean, I almost dropped the phone. And I applied for it and I interviewed. I remember I was working for the Disney Cruise Lines, and they were rehearsing Beauty and the Beast stuff on the other side of the wall. And I'm in a closet doing my interview with Steve Sansweet. Like, yeah, you want to hire me? And, they were like, is that music in the background? Like, is someone singing Be Our Guest? And I'm like, yeah, I'm at work.
But I'm taking this interview. There's no way.
Yeah. And I'm thinking I'm not going to get this job. And keep in mind, this is pre-Disney. Like, Disney didn't own Lucasfilm yet. So,
Right.
It's like these two different worlds.
Well, remind us, what year was this? What year is this happening?
2006, I think. I could be wrong, but around there.
So you're doing this interview. You obviously get this job, and we're going to get to how you contributed. But you're right about networking. It seems like it really did pay off for you in the long run. You got to know people, kept in contact, met some others, and then here they are making this phone call to you. So I'm sure you were over the moon.
Freaking out. And then, come to find out later, like years later, discussing it with people, they had like 900 applicants for this job. Like, everybody wants to work there.
Yeah.
I got the job, and I mean, I loaded everything in my car and drove cross country. It it was initially just to work on Star Wars Celebration 4 for
Okay.
the 30th anniversary of Star Wars.
Well, let's get to Celebration 4 in a little bit. Let me ask about emotional connection. So many millions of people have an emotional connection to Star Wars. And some of them went into it not thinking they would or didn't think they did. But ultimately, the movies have done something and people have that connection. And no matter their age, what do you think it is about that property? Why is it that way for everyone, no matter young or old?
It's funny, you know. I think that's a question the company itself is always asking itself. You know, what is this? What's this magic? Because it's lightning in a bottle. I think there's a universal story there about good and bad, and I think everybody, you know, can relate to that. For me, it was the whole, you know, the Luke Skywalker getting out of his farm, you know, off his farm planet and getting to the big leagues. For me, like growing up in a small town, wanting to go do something more. I think that is a lot of it. Then I think there are broad enough characters that everybody sees themselves in something.
So
I think there are, I think a lot of women and maybe even men identify with Princess Leia. Some people identify with Luke. Some people identify with, you know, the loyal Chewbacca. Like there are a lot of different, you know, archetypes that I think, you know, we can get into the Joseph Campbell.
It sounds like the film story gave an opportunity for everyone to connect, no matter what. And it just continued and continued. Now, when you got the job, did you feel the connection you had get stronger?
Yes, without a doubt. I mean, it really was this dream come true. Like it's really hard to convey even now. Like when you tell people, like, I never got jaded about it. I've never been like, yeah, whatever. It's just Star Wars. Like there's still this power to it. And if anything, it's only grown stronger because it used to be a little more like, oh, you're a Star Wars geek. And now it's like, even my wife likes it. And, you know, the people, the jocks in high school like it and their kids like it. And it's become generational.
You know, when we grew up watching it, like I said, there was only those few films, but nowadays they have expanded their world that we have grown up still loving it. But then younger generations, I mean, everybody has a taste of it somewhere, whether it's the animated or whether it's a live action movie or it's a spin-off movie, or of course, Mandalorian, which is a live action TV show. But there is something for everyone. Like you said, it is very relatable. Did the people there have a responsibility and did you feel the pressure?
Yes, to the responsibility. I didn't feel the pressure because I wasn't at the creative level. There is a pressure though, like when putting together a show, and it's the same when I was at Disney, like you're not working for a no-name outlet. You know, you're not working for the small project that if you mess up, no one's going to notice. If you messed up Celebration and something was wrong with the tickets or how you presented the brand or Darth Vader, the fans would let you know. So there was definitely there's a high bar of quality that you had to meet. And luckily, having been at Disney and having that same quality, like that show quality, like you would never put something on stage that didn't look good, that looked, you know, amateur. Like you just
both companies have a visibility to the world and a responsibility. Now, I was going to ask this later, but I'm going to ask it up now because you brought it up. What did you think of the fandom menace? What is that love-hate relationship probably from people that worked there to go, this is a tough line to walk on?
You know, I don't want to make anybody mad. Like I don't want to draw their ire.
Well, I think we both know fans are important and they're so passionate and we love them for it. But was it sometimes a heavy burden to have to deal with?
I think it's frustrating when, you know, yes, we've worked for these big corporations, but we'd all put our heart and soul into it and do our best. And then, you know, the fans could turn on you and turn you into these evil people. And you're like, you know, there isn't some evil marketing team. There isn't some evil, you know, people behind the stage like, oh, we're going to do this. Most people are doing their best in this business, and their idea of their best might not be what you wanted. I think the greatest thing about working for all these brands is meeting the fans, because I think that's another thing about Star Wars and Disney is it's this shared experience. Like when you find out, like, oh, you're a fan too. Like I remember as a kid, the first thing you'd ask your buddy at school, like, oh, you like Star Wars?
Yeah.
And, you know, and then being at the parks, you know, when you were at the parks and like you'd see people walking around like so passionate and so happy to be there. And you think, wow, I'm making these people happy by doing my job. And they love this thing and I love this thing. I think that's the power of it. And doing Star Wars celebrations. I mean, seeing thousands of people cheering at a trailer or just a name, a title being announced, like you would get chills and think, my God, this is so cool to make this many people
The
happy.
roar. Hired for Star Wars Celebration. Is that annual?
It's all
Besides
over.
COVID times, I mean.
It's semi-annual. I mean, it's not on a set cadence.
Okay.
And I know that COVID's kind of screwed stuff up because there was supposed to be one last year.
Right.
But they were doing them with like the release of the prequels, and then
Okay.
they did them, for some anniversaries, and then and then
So
the
maybe
new.
a high-profile debut or premiere or a message they want to put.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were hired for Celebration. What'd you do after? What did you just continue to do events for them as they came up?
Yeah. So, and it's funny, my last 3 or 4 jobs have been kind of the same thing at different companies. Comic Cons, E3, the video game convention, like, because, at Lucasfilm, we had LucasArts, you had ILM, you had, George would make appearances. So it was anything that was live event related. So if George was going to be on a TV show, I might have to go down there and wrangle stormtroopers to be behind him on stage. I got to go to Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Carrie Fisher was one of the guests because it was Star Wars themed, and they had the stormtroopers with the girls with the briefcases. And Carrie Fisher came out and surprised one of the contestants because she had been in love with Princess Leia and been a big fan. So Howie Mandel brought her out. So things like that, where we had to organize stormtroopers, Chewbacca, Darth Vader, like they need to make appearances, cameos in films, things like that. Setting up the Star Wars booth at Comic-Con.
Let's just face it and say this right out. That is hard work. But a lot of people might go, gosh, it's a lot of like doing things on the back end. But because it changed all the time, that must have just kept it exciting every moment.
Oh, yeah.
And good, bad, or indifferent, exciting.
Yeah, I never had, and most of my career, I've never had the same day twice. Like you would go in and go, now what? Because I did everything from the Rose Parade to E3, Comic-Con, TV appearances, movie premieres. Sometimes they were just parties in the dining area, like for the employees, and they all had different challenges. They all had different, some of them would have no budget. Some of them we would have a bunch of money to play with and do fun stuff. So every day was different, which was pretty wild. And, any day,
that sounds so fun. That sounds
any day that stormtroopers were walking down the hallway, you're like, I can't believe this is my job. This is so cool. So the headquarters is in San Francisco. At the Letterman Digital Arts Center, which is in the Presidio. So that's the headquarters.
The headquarters were there, but what is the difference between Skywalker Ranch? What is Skywalker Ranch's purpose, or what has it been?
So one of the amazing things about George is he's got this great taste. He's got this great touch for building spaces and architecture. And I think it was after Empire that he built the ranch kind of as a creative retreat and a headquarters. I don't think he realized what the company would become, because back then it wasn't as large. The model shop was nearby, which was more of a warehouse and not something you'd expect. It was more of an industrial, warehouse in someone's neighborhood, and that's where like all the creatures were. And then up at the ranch was his office where he could write. Sky Sound is up there, so that's where they mix films and stuff like that. And it's this very pastoral, beautiful, secluded space. And then down at the Presidio was more of your office, marketing, legal, finance, more of your like corporate headquarters. And ILM was down there. So they'd be working on, another crazy thing about being there was it wasn't just Star Wars. ILM's worked on, and this is pre-Disney.
Right, everything.
They'd be working on Star Trek. They'd be working on Iron Man. They'd be working on Harry Potter, Pirates of the Caribbean. And so on any given day, somebody at lunch would be like, oh yeah, I got to finish that shot of, Iron Man by lunch. And you're like, oh, wow. Okay. I need to go back to my desk and do paperwork. Like, wow.
Just another day. What's the environment like at Lucasfilm?
Very professional, but just that like sense of fun. Like it's hard to explain. They work their butts off. Like I don't think that's conveyed enough to people. Like it's a lot of work. It's a lot of hours. For people like the ILM guys, they're cutting edge. They're always 2 steps ahead. They're always working their butts off. But then there's also this sense of magic because you're walking by these hallways just plastered with George's artwork and concept art and stills from the film and, autographed cast posters with, everybody that worked on Iron Man and things like that, where you go, wow, there's just this light. The whole time I was there, every morning I would wake up excited to go to work. I don't think once I woke up and thought, oh, I gotta go to work today. And that, that's a
lucky man, very lucky man. That's great. Were there the veterans in when you went to work? Did you see people that were on A New Hope? Did they still work there in any way?
Yeah, a couple of them. I don't quote me because I think a couple of them have retired in the last few years, but I think Dennis Muren just retired. But Dennis Muren would be in line at the cafeteria, and he's somebody who, as a kid, I was watching the making of on ABC, right? Like the making of Empire Strikes Back, 1 hour special. And that's how I learned who these people were. Here I am, like 11 years old, going, I know Dennis Muren, and I know, Lauren Peterson, and all these people that built the models, right? Ben Burtt, who did the sound. And then to see them in real life was one thing. And then to have them was like, this is crazy. So yeah, a couple of them are still around. I think a lot of them are starting to retire. We're hitting that point. But the years I was there, a lot of them were still there. I mean, George was still there. That was always pretty wild.
Obviously, I was around in 77. I actually didn't see Star Wars until it's re-released in 79, but for the first time with my father and my sister. But for you, when did you get emotionally invested? Do you remember?
Yeah. Again, I think we're close to the same age. I didn't see it in the theaters. I was too young, but I was aware of it. And then I think like kindergarten, first grade, I think we saw it, and then I saw Empire, and I remember seeing Jedi, going with my dad, and, having all the toys, and like that's all we talked about. I mean, the minute class was over, it was like, let's talk about Star Wars. Who are you going to be? And we would play that.
I remember bringing action figures to school.
Yeah.
And you did compare who's got what, and it was an awesome time, right? It was an awesome time for movies and for storytelling. While you were there, because I'm sure you can talk about things that have happened, what was being worked on that you were kind of couldn't talk about, but what has come to fruition? What was growing?
I'll be very careful here.
Sorry, but they would have already been out.
Yeah.
They've already made it.
So I also worked with the video game division. I was part of LucasArts at one point, like just, technically I was a LucasArts employee under Lucasfilm, for my pay code. But there were games that were put together and didn't come out. And then I've seen elements of those games pulled into shows.
Oh, okay.
George was working on Underworld, which we all know about, that, he wanted to make a TV show.
Yep.
I don't think any of that, I know that none of that has happened. That show hasn't been made.
But others have.
I think they've taken concept art and said, oh, they drew a blaster for this show. Let's use that. Or they drew a ship. And I think they've reutilized Ralph McQuarrie's art over and over and things like that. But I was there at a weird time because George was still there and they were done making films. So we all thought, okay, Clone Wars is out, and, George is making some other projects, but no Star Wars films are going to come out. So I thought it was done.
Yeah.
And then I had left. Then I went out with Star Wars in concert. So I toured with the London Royal Philharmonic, and I took I was in charge of the props, and we traveled around the world doing concerts. And then when I came back, I worked on the Red Tails campaign, which is about the Tuskegee Airmen. George made that film, self-funded that film. So I worked on the marketing campaign for that. Yeah, I was there when Clone Wars came out, and even as a fan, I was excited, but I had no idea like how much of an impact it would have. I didn't think, to be honest, I didn't think the animated series could be as good as the films. I didn't think the storytelling could reach that level, and it blew my mind.
The character of Ahsoka, was it a throwaway character, do you think, in the beginning? It's like, okay, cool. Or did they know she would be so great? Or just was it like, let's see what happens?
My personal opinion, I know she wasn't a throwaway, I can tell you that. But, you can't decide whether something's going to land or not, right?
Yeah.
Even if you are a George Lucas, like you can't decide that everyone's going to love this character. But they wrote her very well. They had the story arc, and I liked her at the beginning. I wasn't like, oh, she's one of my favorite characters. Mm-hmm. And at the end, she was one of my favorite characters.
Yeah. She also crossed over to Rebels, which when they matured a character, that happens very little in animation, doesn't it? Where you can watch a growth in physicality, because animation usually skips over the fact that people grow up.
Yeah, and it's that attention to detail that George had and Dave had and his team had. And I mean, again, there are these incredible people in animation, like the from the lighting to the sound, like they're some of the best, and they're passionate about it. Like to a person, every one of them are Star Wars fans. I still marvel at what they pulled off and what they've been able to achieve. And I'm still excited about what they're going to do next. I'm really excited about Kenobi. Ewan McGregor. I'm just dying to see where they go with the story, and and now that he's aged a little bit, Boba Fett series is going to be great. Even the stuff that I know, I was still blown away. Still sitting here going, "What? Oh my god!" And I think that really reinvigorated my fandom. Like, I got really excited this last year seeing all this come together. I thought the Ahsoka episode was just mind blowing. And I'm really excited to see where that goes.
Let's talk about canon. Can you what is canon?
Canon is, how would I describe this? And I'm friends with the people that keep track of all this, but it's the in-universe continuity. It's something that happened in the book. Did it happen in the movie? Because I think in the old days there was a little bit of like it's in the comic book, but that doesn't mean he really lived that. That's just a fun adventure. It's a fun story.
Droids and Ewoks, those animated cartoons, like, is that a sort of locked in the vault, like the holiday special, or are they just sort of just a standalone, something in the past, or is there any, I guess, love to those?
The slate was wiped clean. Yeah. And since they haven't talked about them recently, I don't think that they're canon. I don't think that there's anything wrong with them, or they're not hiding them.
And I don't think the animated cartoon from 1985, Droids, made the list. Although I personally thought it works. I really wish they would make it, because that would be a great animated cartoon, or a live action, is the adventure of those two droids.
I think they want to keep the timeline somewhat clean.
It does it can be confusing. Absolutely.
I was trying to explain X-Men to my daughters the other night after WandaVision, because they haven't watched those films yet. And they were like, well, who are they? And I'm like, well, they were owned by Fox, and this is Marvel. But now they own Fox.
All right, folks, we'll be right back with David Iskra for more of this interview.
Now the Earthlings at PopCon have asked my associate me to remind you to subscribe to the channel. Fascinating shows to like, share, and comment. It is exciting, R2. May the Force be with you. Subscribe today.
I'm a frustrated artist, and I just love Ralph McQuarrie's artwork. I was a huge Ralph McQuarrie fan, and so for me, my most amazing moment was getting to meet him in person. This was about 2 years before he passed, and it was, they say don't meet your heroes, but don't believe that. He was just the sweetest, kindest gentleman ever, and just never in my life did I think I'd be in a room with him, let alone talking about art with him, and it was just wild.
What about George? What's your favorite story interacting with him? Was it the first, or?
The first was the funniest. My first day, which, I mean, you couldn't script this any better. My first day, I mean, I just felt I felt like someone was going to come grab me and go, "Hey, buddy, like, nice try. Get back outside." And you're just like, what? When I say every day was different, I mean, my first day was different to my second day. But the first day they were like, "Hey, Chewbacca is going to go somewhere this week, and we need you to to take him, and he's going to make like a TV appearance." And I had to go get the costume and take it down to my car. And I got on the elevator, and George got on the elevator with me.
Oh my gosh, how exciting.
And they had told us, like, there's no, like, do not make eye contact with him. Like, he's not like that, but they don't want you bothering him and asking for an autograph. Like, there's this professional level that you keep anywhere in the business.
I'm sure you're able to say, "Hi, it's nice to meet you." Or,
yeah. Of course. But I'm saying when you're at work, like, I think that your average person doesn't realize you can't, if all 600 employees start asking him for autographs, like, there's just a professional line. So I'm standing there holding Chewbacca, and he gets in the elevator with me, and I'm like, this is bizarre. And, he got on and was I think even he was like, all right, this is a little too on the nose. Like, because people weren't carrying Chewbacca costumes around the office every day.
Right.
And he kind of smirked, and he made like a funny comment, and I just kind of laughed because I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to be obnoxious, but I also didn't want to be rude and not say hi to him. And then I would see him. He was a very gentle, quiet person, super nice. There's no aura to him where he wasn't full of himself. He wasn't, the VIP. I mean, he was very just down to earth. My first time was he came to the Lion King show with his family as a guest. And I remember them telling me, I was backstage working at Disney, and somebody said, "George is here." And I was like, "Oh, real funny," because they all knew I was a fan. they're like, no, really, he's here. And I'm like, yeah, you're real funny. And then I peeked out the curtain and I'm like, that's George Lucas. And, they went backstage to get a cast picture, and I got to go out there and take a picture with them. And, I thought that was it. Like, oh, my life is made, never thinking I'd go work for him.
Or be in an elevator with a Chewbacca costume.
Yeah. And then when I lived out there, like, this was the other weird thing I never thought about living on the East Coast. I would see him at our local movie theater.
No way.
All the time. And you would just be like, there he is, seeing a movie, like a normal person. Like, he's just a very normal person, which I think, for a lot of your viewers, we think that these people are special or magical, and they are in their way. But at the end of the day, they're all normal people, and they have kids and families, and they go grocery shopping, and, sometimes you see them. So.
That's amazing. Can you tell me, is the holiday special pretty much taboo to talk about at work at Lucasfilm? Or is it just as much a joke in there as it is on the outside?
It's funny. I mean, again, I'm not the official spokesperson.
Just your opinion of your time there.
10 years ago, like, it was, George doesn't like it. He's made no secret. Like, it got made. He wasn't happy with the quality, and the company just didn't acknowledge it. And then now it's become this more ironic haha moment. And I see it's more on the, the web shows, and it's more out there in pop culture. So, and it's become a little more of an inside joke. Well, I mean, it gave us Boba Fett. So I think if nothing else, it gave us Boba Fett. It gave us that iconic shot of him with the
weapon. That animation's fantastic, and it's just the best part of it.
And it's so timely. It's so like early 80s, late 70s vibe.
Sure. And especially, I remember those 70s films like Wizards and Heavy Metal, and there is that imagery to it, which is great animation style for sure. So it was cool to see. Obviously, Star Wars is not going to leave. It's going to be a force to be reckoned with for, I don't know, it could be forever. If you imagine when it debuted in 77, there has not been a decade at least, if not a matter of 5 years before something has been released. So do you think Star Wars has the staying power?
It does. And I think, I think we really started to see that. I remember when we were doing Star Wars weekends, I think the idea was, hey, the movies are done. We're not going to do these anymore. Like, they're done. No one's going to care. Like, like someone was just going to turn off a spigot of fandom and people were going to stop liking it.
Right.
And that came from people that weren't fans. And I remember thinking like, oh, you'll see. But even I didn't expect this. I didn't expect, what we have and what we're getting. And God only knows where we're going 10 years down the line. But I think some of it is because you now have this generational, like, people that were my parents' age saw Star Wars and they loved it. People my age saw it. My kids love it. Their kids might love it. And it's similar to Disney, where I went to Disney World. Now I take my kids to Disney World.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it keeps going. So even though you might not be getting anything new out of it because you've already gotten what you need out of it, you're giving it to your kids. And your kids are
getting something brand new. I see YouTube reaction videos where a father is showing his daughter a part of one of those iconic films, whether it's Darth Vader telling Luke Skywalker he was his father. And those reaction videos, they're funny, they're heartwarming, and you're like, well, there it is. That's passing a torch, right?
Well, they're fairy tales too. Like they're stories. Like, at the end of the day, they're really great stories that you're passing on generationally. And we're finding new corners of the stories, or we're retelling stories. But I think that's what it comes down to.
Why did you leave? What was the, just simply a time had come, or was the reorder?
What's funny. And again, this is where that, like, you can't plan these things. I was totally happy at my job. And one day they came to me and said, hey, we're putting this thing together called Star Wars in Concert, and we want you to take this job. And at first I was like, you're trying to get rid of me? And they're like, no. Because they were sending out the London Royal Philharmonic. It was an 80-piece orchestra around the world for about 2 years, doing this huge, you can find clips on YouTube, I'm sure, this huge spectacle show in arenas. Component of that show was an exhibit, like a museum exhibit. And so I had items from Skywalker Ranch that we took and set up a museum on the concourse of these arenas. So I had to leave the company, even though I was still kind of working for Lucasfilm. And it was chance of a lifetime. I got to go to 16 different countries. We traveled all over the world. Anthony Daniels was the host, so I got to travel with C-3PO and see C-3PO at lunch and breakfast. So I said yes, and I'm glad I did. I wound up coming back to Pennsylvania at some point and meeting my wife, so that paid off. I had an open invite to come back, and when the show ended, we toured for about 2 years on and off, so it was pretty wild. When that was done, my job had been filled, so I couldn't go back and take my job, which was fine. I kind of knew that was going to happen. I got to go back and do the Red Tails marketing, so that was fun. I was still back at the company,
Right.
and then I bounced around a little bit. I went back to Disney for a little while.
Your history with that company and Disney as well, but the accomplishments you made, the traveling you've done, the people you've met, the responsibility you've been given, I'm sure you feel pretty proud of yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I still pinch myself that I got to do it. And again, I realize I'm this tiny part in this huge, huge company that thousands of people have worked at by now. So yeah, I'm very proud and, happy that I got to experience that. I mean, I always said that even if I only worked there for 6 months and never worked there again, I would have felt like, oh, I lived my childhood dream.
I would as well. Now, before we go, it's going to a few minutes. I'm going to show you a picture, and I let me see, share screen. I want to know all about this. What is this about? Can you see this? Do you see the picture? So this, I've always wanted to ask about this trading card that is very infamous trading card. And it is all over the internet. No, it's been years. Now, this is one of those where no one can seem to explain what's going on in this general vicinity. Do you know?
I do not know. I'm sure there's a Google search somewhere and some rabid fan can explain it. It might, yeah, it's obviously a glitch.
It gives a new meaning to goldenrod, when he's called that. So I had to end it on that because this is gone down. This is mythos here in Star Wars myth. And I'm like, this old 1977, 78 trading card. And you're like, what happened? But anyway, I just really, really wanted to share that and to show that to you. So David, I really appreciate your time with me and coming on to PopCon. You actually shared so much about your time at Lucasfilm, but what it was about the feeling. Well, thank you again. Really appreciate the time you had, and good luck with your future. And maybe we'll see each other down in the Florida area one time.
Great. Thanks, Victor.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Hey everybody, thank you for watching PopCon. I love making this, and it truly is a work of passion. It is a very young channel, and I have a lot of evolution to do. If you like these pop conversations, there's a lot more to come with a variety of individuals who have somewhat touched or been part of our pop culture. But I need the support of others, and I'm looking for that 100th subscriber. So if you could, please hit the subscribe button and help me make it happen so I can keep bringing great content to you. Also love and appreciate the shares, the likes, and the comments. So thanks again. Hope you enjoyed the show, and I'll talk to you soon.